Thank you for watching us on YouTube. But did you know that if you're on the go, you can get the full show as a podcast now? You can get our morning breakdown of the most important topics facing our country, news not being covered by the mainstream media, interviews with change-making progressives, and info on what you can actually do about all this. Search for The Damage Report on your favorite podcast app and subscribe so you know when new episodes are ready to go. So let's get into Kavanaugh because there's a lot to cover and there's so much news that we want to talk about other than that too. So look, if you're just tuning in, we have had the procedural vote, 51-49, his nomination vote will go forward. And it's expected that it seems like it's probably gonna happen tomorrow morning. Now, we're not gonna have a regularly scheduled damage report, obviously, but we will be doing a response video regardless, whether he gets voted affirmatively or negatively. And we have a little bit of information about how that vote might actually go. Before we get to that though, I wanna talk a little bit about the lead up to today. So Donald Trump apparently getting more and more angry with this process, the way it's going down. He certainly expected this to be a much smoother process than it turned out to be. He's probably also a little bit mad about that viral video going around of him walking up to a plane with toilet paper on his shoe. There's a lot floating around in his head that's making him mad. So this morning he tweeted, "The very rude elevator screamers are paid professionals only looking to make senators look bad. Don't fall for it. Also, look at all the other professionally made identical signs paid for by Soros and others. These are not signs made in the basement from love."
First of all, The Basement from Love. That's the movie I want to see.
That's an indie film.
Oh, did you see The Basement from Love? It's only in landmark theaters.
Professionally made.
Yeah,
I don't know what that's supposed to mean. So here is what I believe has happened in 99% of all cases where there's some sort of protest. There's Soros and stuff. No, there's Soros.
No, it's Soros. It's only Soros. Are you kidding me, Donald Trump? There are so many signs at every one of your rallies that are like veterans for Trump. That, I mean, if you want to talk about your basement from love, that's a thing. I don't know if there's a documentary called The War Room where they're like, can we have a bunch of people handwrite signs to make it look cool?
Yeah.
And that's a thing. But are you kidding me? These elevator screamers?
So those women are lying about having been sexually assaulted.
Yes, that's what he's trying to tell you. But anyone who watches that video, anyone who listens to what she says in the elevator confronting Jeff Flake, there is no way you can deny that. But that's the same dynamic that he's putting to work with the elevator screamers, as he calls her, and with Christine Blasey Ford's testimony, which if you listen to it, and after he listened to it, what they came away was incredible. But that's not what he's relying on. He's relying on now just going and saying a bunch of stuff to people who already agree with him to try to create a narrative that transcends that small group of people echoing each other.
Yeah, the woman on the elevator was either honestly had been sexually assaulted or she was Meryl Streep.
But can we?
It's the best acting ever. I give her the Emmy or the Oscar or whatever. A Globe, perhaps, a golden one.
I just hate saying the word Soros.
Yeah, so I want to ask you about that. So I've seen a lot of people talking about why they go to Soros. Big question, is this just a shortcut to anti-Semitism?
I don't
think
there's
the Jew that is running things behind the scenes.
It's definitely, there is severe anti-Semitism behind that, but there's also a lot of love for Israel on the right. So those often go hand in hand. The idea that we have to protect Israel, but we also think that there's a new world order. Right,
but because they like Israel, they don't like Jewish people.
I know.
They think Israel is geopolitically and religiously important for them, not for Jewish people, but for the future of evangelical Christianity or for our battle against the Muslims.
Yes, they like Judeo-Christianity. They do not like Judeo. That's what it boils down to. Yeah, there's an inherent anti-Semitism. I feel like a weirdo saying it, that I have to say it, and saying it period is like, oh, it gives people an opportunity to be like, oh, it's always about that kind of stuff with you people, on the left. But yes, I think that's in there. I do also think that it's both a anti-Semitic undercurrent and just saying Soros is a thing you say when you're a crazy conspiracy theorist.
Especially when, like, okay, if he has been behind every left-wing protest for years now.
But he's not.
Show it. Like, here's
Where?
the thing with the Koch brothers, like, we have had reporters show the actual transfers of money between Koch and their PACs to groups that organize protests. Like, we're not just saying, oh, the Koch brothers like this stuff. We're saying, here is the money they gave to Talking Points. Here's the money that they gave to blah, blah, blah. You go look at Ken Klippenstein's reporting. We actually show the money being moved around. With Soros, it's just, hey, you've heard of Soros. He's a scary, shady guy, right? And that's it.
Look at his profile picture, and I don't mean on his social media. They're talking about this.
Yes. Okay, so
One of
let's talk
these
about
noses.
whether we might actually have Kavanaugh on the Supreme Court, because we had the cloture vote. We had, let's see, Joe Manchin, Susan Collins, Jeff Flake voted to advance Kavanaugh to a final vote, which doesn't necessarily mean that they're gonna vote for him, although Flake has said, unless something changes, he will vote for him. And he also said he doesn't expect anything to change. So that's pretty clear. We'll return to Flake. Susan Collins is expected to give a big speech, I think in about 2 hours now. We should have a big speech where she will say how she's going to vote. Apparently believing that her voting to push forward the confirmation is not indication enough, which it really isn't. Let's see, and Joe Manchin has voted to move it forward, but he could just be doing that because he doesn't want to look like an obstructionist, even though he plans to vote against him. Maybe I'm just being hopeful
Joe
and
Manchin
naive.
is an interesting thing. On the actual vote on the floor today, he was not part of the original, and I don't know, this doesn't really mean anything. He was not part of the original ayes versus nays. It was after they all came in, they announced his after, as if he was like waiting, he might just not have been there. But it seemed even more cowardly. I do think that the way Joe Manchin operates in West Virginia, I think he could vote no and just say, I didn't like the look of this guy. Because that's a very Joe Manchin thing to say. It's like, they're gonna tell me the Democrats or Republicans are all gonna tell, or the party apparatuses, the politicians in Washington are gonna tell me what to do. I just go with my gut. I didn't like the sound of this guy. He's not gonna represent West Virginia. Give me another name and I'll do the same thing I did last time and just evaluate him, size him up and do it.
Yeah, it is possible. Look, I don't want to get your hopes up. And look, and Flake saying that he is going to vote yes on Kavanaugh. Like, I'm not gonna lie to you. There's plenty of people you can watch if you want to be lied to. That does decrease the chance that he gets blocked from being on the Supreme Court. It just does. It doesn't mean that he's gonna make it on. There are still scenarios that there's like 3 scenarios where the votes work out so that he doesn't get on. But that does hurt it, and I'm not gonna pretend that that's not the case. Now, I think we have to give credit to Lisa Murkowski.
Yeah.
We've been saying put pressure on them for week after week after week. And activist groups and regular people and celebrities. We had Piper Perabo on, Alyssa Milano, trying to get people to put pressure on them. And it appears to have worked, at least in Lisa Murkowski's case. She says, I believe that Brett Kavanaugh is a good man. In my view, he's not the right man for the court at this time. I've been wrestling to really try to know what is fair and what is right. And the truth is that none of this has been fair. It hasn't been fair to the judge. But I also recognize that we need to have institutions that are viewed as fair. But if people who are victims, people who feel that there is no fairness in our system of government, particularly within our courts, we've gone down to a path that is not good and right for this country. So I don't like much of what she said there. And I also kind of don't like that the reason she's saying she's not gonna go for him is because he makes it seem like the Supreme Court will be unfair. I think that's true. I don't know that that's the biggest issue with Brett Kavanaugh, but whatever. She is going to vote against Brett Kavanaugh. That is incredibly significant, especially with Jeff Flake voting the way he's going to.
Well, with the Roe versus Wade stuff, it seems like reliably anybody on that final list of names that Trump put forward will be bad for Roe. So in terms of these senators representing women's interests in a more moderate state, et cetera, it seems like they can confirm one of Trump's Supreme Court judges and it will still be bad for them in the eyes of that. But with Kavanaugh, he adds an extra element of what we saw during that testimony. I think there's an argument for them to say, just like Manchin, give me another name. What does that say though for the midterms? Because previously in the general election, we had a bunch of Democrats, people on the left anyway, saying the Supreme Court is important. And there were a lot of folks saying, nah, not that important, not important enough to vote for Hillary. And on the right, there were a lot of people saying, the Supreme Court's important. And they said, it is important. And it's important enough for me to even vote for Trump so I get these judges. So if you do confirm Kavanaugh and you put him through, you're not really changing the effect of what the Supreme Court would say, except according to some having to do with whether he would say it's okay to subpoena a sitting president.
Which could be significant.
But you do have this specter of, are the Dems indefinitely obstructionist that will motivate people in the midterms on the right to come out and counteract the blue wave to a certain extent. That's the strategic thing. And it seems like when I was looking at the faces of Feinstein and Schumer today when they were giving their speeches before the floor, I just looked at them and I was like, it seems like they're kind of giving up.
Yeah, I mean, look, Feinstein has done some good stuff. Schumer has not been very important in this process. But again, Flake sucks. Let's bear that in mind for the rest of his career. He absolutely sucks. He's the worst. And by the way, you're not gonna be president, you stupid, stupid little man.
Yeah.
You're never ever gonna be president. Why would you wanna be? Look at your party, look at what it's become. And they don't like you, they're never gonna like you. Doesn't matter if you support Kavanaugh, if you don't support Kavanaugh, at least just do the right thing on your way out because you're done after this. But anyway, no, he sucks. And Lisa Murkowski, pretty cool, at least on this. Terrible in general, but sometimes one vote is very significant. John McCain reminded us of that last year. Thank you very much for watching this clip from the Damage Report. If you liked it, don't forget to subscribe to this channel and ring the bell on YouTube to get notifications of our new videos. And of course, you can catch the full Damage Report live every weekday at 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific on TYT Network on YouTube TV.